They thought I would never leave. They thought I was too weak, too scared, too dependent. Maybe, for a while they were right. But there's something people forget about women who suffer in silence. They think our quiet means surrender. What they don't realize is we're gathering strength. Quietly, patiently, and when we rise, it's never the same woman who endured the pain. This is not just a story about betrayal, that it's about rebirth. My name is Alina, and once upon a time, I was a fool in love. I met Ethan when I was 21, young, naive, working at a small downtown cafe to pay for my business diploma. I was always on my feet, hair tied back in a messy bun, apron stained with coffee, and hustled. He walked in on a rainy Thursday. He looked out of place, like he belonged in a boardroom, not a street corner diner. Tall, polished, radiating confidence. He ordered black coffee, no sugar, no cream. He smiled at me as if I were the only one in the room. You look like someone with big dreams, he said. I am, I replied, unsure why his words made my heart race. He nodded, like he already knew that. And before he left, he handed me a business card with his name. Ethan Williams, Director of Business Development, Argent Corp. I should have known then. When someone like him notices someone like me, there's always a catch. But I was young, and I believed in fairy tales. Our love story moved quickly. Too quickly. He courted me with expensive dinners, flowers sent to my workplace, promises of forever. He told me I didn't belong behind a counter, that I was meant for greater things. I believed him. I wanted to believe someone finally saw me, that we got married after just 8 months. And that's when the mask began to slip. It started with little things. He'd come home late, avoid my eyes, hide his phone. I thought it was stress, work, something fixable. But then his mother came to stay with us. Margaret. A woman carved from ice and silk. Her eyes were always calculating, her smile never reached her eyes. She never addressed me by my name, only that girl. She reminded me constantly that I didn't deserve her son. Ethan is used to a certain class of woman, she told me one morning over breakfast. You're fine for now, but don't get too comfortable. Ethan said nothing, just sipped his coffee and looked out the window, and I smiled, because I didn't want to seem ungrateful. That was the beginning of my silence. I told myself things would get better, that every couple had problems, that Margaret's coldness, Ethan's silence, the constant loneliness, were just phases. But phases aren't supposed to hurt like that. Phases don't make you question your worth every single day. The first time I truly suspected Ethan was cheating, it was late, past midnight. He was on the phone, pacing the hallway in a low voice. He didn't notice I was standing by the stairs, barefoot and invisible. Don't worry, he whispered. She won't find out. She's too busy playing housewife. My throat closed up. I didn't sleep that night. I watched him breathe beside me, his chest rising and falling so peacefully while my heart shattered in silence. I wanted to confront him. But fear held me hostage. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of proving his mother right. So, I said nothing, and stayed. The second time, I did speak. It was a Friday. I was doing laundry and found a receipt in his jacket pocket. A luxury hotel, rose petals, champagne service. We hadn't had a date night in months. When I showed it to him, he didn't flinch. Are you going through my pockets now? He asked. Who is she? I whispered. He sighed like I was being dramatic. Alina, don't start. You're imagining things. He made me feel crazy. Like I was the problem. Like suspicion was worse than betrayal. I apologized. Can you believe that? I apologized for doubting the man who was destroying me. The affair wasn't the worst part. It was the emotional starvation. The way he'd ignore me at dinner. The way he never asked about my day. The way Margaret would smirk when he walked in smelling of another woman's perfume, and say nothing. They were partners in my humiliation, and still, I stayed, because I had nothing. No savings, no family nearby, just a broken heart and an empty house. But pain is a seed, and deep inside me, something was beginning to grow. Then came the final blow, that I was cleaning the study one morning, when I heard Ethan on a video call. The door was slightly ajar. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. And what I heard? Yeah, she thinks I'm still working late. Honestly, I only married her because I felt sorry for her. My mom was right, she's too weak to leave. Then laughter from him. And another woman. They laughed at me.at my love.my loyalty.my belief in him. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. That night, I packed a single suitcase. A few clothes. My old laptop.no note. No goodbye. Just silence. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. Right beside the receipt from that hotel. I walked out of our house with $217 in my bank account and a storm in my chest. The air felt different. Heavy. But free.it was over. I moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the rougher side of town. I didn't tell anyone where I went. I cut off everyone. Margaret, Ethan, the fake friends who only called when they wanted something. And for the first time in years, I slept in peace, not happiness. Not yet. But peace. I got 3 jobs. A call center in the morning, cleaning offices at night, weekend shifts at a small skincare kiosk at the mall. People looked at me like I was broken, but they didn't see the fire under my skin. I was rebuilding. It wasn't easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, days I wanted to give up, but I remembered his voice. She's too weak to leave. That sentence became my fuel. I started taking online business classes again. Saved every penny. Learned about marketing, e-commerce, supply chains. Used my cleaning job to pay for product samples from local cosmetic labs. I started a tiny skincare line from my apartment. No big investors. No team. Just me. In pain. In grit. I called it Reborn. Because that's what I was becoming. It started small. A few friends from my old call center job tried my face serum. Then a coworker shared it on her Instagram. Suddenly I had 10 orders, then 20. I packaged them myself, wrote handwritten thank you notes, and delivered some on foot just to save shipping. The first month, I made a profit of $119. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And it was honest. I reinvested every cent, skipped meals so I could afford better packaging. Stayed up until 3 a.m. learning SEO, product photography, customer service. I turned my tiny apartment into a warehouse. I was exhausted, but I had never felt more alive. For the first time, I wasn't living for someone else. Not for Ethan. Not for Margaret. Not for society. I was living for me. By the end of the first year, I had an online store. By the end of the second, I had my first official staff, a college student named Jasmine, and a single dad named Chris who helped with deliveries. By the third year, Reborn was featured in a local women's magazine. I framed the article. Not because of vanity, but because 3 years earlier I had been on the kitchen floor of a man's house, begging for love. Now I was building an empire. Then came the moment that changed everything. A video of a TikToker raving about my eye cream went viral. Within 48 hours we sold out. Not just sold out, backordered for 3 weeks. I cried in the warehouse, surrounded by boxes and sticky notes. But these were not tears of sadness, they were tears of disbelief. Tears of pride. My story, my pain, had become power. I was no longer just healing. I was rising. With success came attention, partnership offers, interviews. Even a podcast invited me to talk about how I made it. But I wasn't interested in fame. I wanted freedom. So I kept my circle small. Trusted few. Focused on my mission. To empower women who had been overlooked, silenced, and underestimated. Just like I had been. I started hiring women from shelters, single mothers, survivors. We weren't just a team. We were a movement. And then one afternoon, as I was reviewing resumes for a new managerial role, I saw a name. Ethan Williams. My heart stopped. I stared at the screen, blinking. Was it really him? Same name. Same face. Same smug LinkedIn profile. My past. Now begging for a role in my future. It felt poetic. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the city skyline outside my glass office window. The man who once said I was too weak to leave was now unknowingly applying for a job in a company built from the ashes of what he destroyed. I didn't delete the application. I scheduled him for an interview. The day of the interview arrived. I wore my power suit, sleek black, hair pinned back, minimal makeup, just enough to say, I own this room. My assistant, Carla, looked confused when she saw the applicant's name. Do you know this guy? I smiled. Let's just say we have history. At 2:10 p.m., he walked through the doors, same height, same stride, But something was different that he looked smaller, not in size, but in presence that he wore a wrinkled blazer. His hair was thinning, and the shine in his eyes, the arrogance, was gone that he didn't recognize me at first that he glanced around the reception area, holding his resume like it was his last hope. When I stepped into the room, he turned slowly. Our eyes met. That moment stretched, his lips parted, his eyebrows furrowed. "Alina?" he whispered, disbelief coating his voice that I nodded. "Welcome to Reborn, Ethan. Please have a seat." He looked like he'd seen a ghost, that I didn't smile, that didn't flinch, that I watched him shift uncomfortably, unsure whether to be ashamed or afraid. "You're the CEO?" "Founder. CEO. Owner. Boss." I let the words settle that he stammered, trying to recover. "Wow. I had no idea. You look different." "I am different." I folded my hands. "Let's talk about why you applied here." He went on about his skills, his experience, how he could bring value to the company. I listened in silence, that he didn't ask once how I was, that didn't apologize, that didn't even acknowledge what he did. Because men like Ethan don't believe they were wrong. They just believe time makes it forgettable. When he finished, I leaned in slightly. "You once said I was too weak to leave. Remember?" He froze, his eyes widened at a flicker of guilt, then fear. "Alina, listen. I was stupid. I was young. I've changed." "So have I," I said. "But I didn't change because I had to. I changed because you broke me. And I rebuilt myself. Stronger, smarter, and colder." He reached across the table. "We were good once, right? Maybe we can try again." I laughed, not cruelly, just in disbelief. "Ethan, this company is called Reborn. That's what I am. What you knew. She doesn't exist anymore." He left with a handshake and no job.no parting words. No apologies, just the echo of his own choices chasing him out the door. And me? I turned to my window, overlooking the skyline. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving, that I was thriving. After Ethan walked out of my office that day, I didn't cry, that I didn't feel vindictive, that I didn't even feel victorious, that I just felt whole. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need someone else to see my worth, that I had seen it for myself. And that was enough. That I went home that night to a quiet, beautiful apartment, not a mansion, not a palace, but mine. That I made myself tea, sat by the window, watched the city lights flicker like little pulses of freedom. And I thought about that girl, the one on the kitchen floor 5 years ago, heartbroken, humiliated, clinging to a man who couldn't even offer her the bare minimum. She didn't know who she'd become. She didn't know that one day, she'd build something out of nothing. That one day, the man who broke her would beg to work for her. That one day, she'd sit in silence, not as a victim, but as a queen in her own empire. And I want to speak to you. Listening to this, maybe you're where I was. Maybe you're in the middle of your storm. Maybe you feel stuck in a toxic love, an invisible cage, a life that's slowly swallowing your voice. Let me tell you something no one told me. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not asking for too much. You are asking the wrong person. You don't need their validation, their attention, their crumbs of love. You need you. Your strength, your clarity, your own hands reaching for your own freedom. And yes, it's hard. It's terrifying to leave. To walk into the unknown with nothing but your name and your fire. But what's waiting on the other side of that fear is rebirth. A new version of you. Not polished, not perfect, but powerful, real, untouchable. There is a life beyond betrayal. There is a joy beyond the pain. There is a you beyond the version they tried to break. So rise. Cry if you must, scream, pack your bags at midnight. Take the job. Leave the house. Start the business. Lose them to find yourself. Because you are not meant to shrink for anyone. You are meant to expand, to grow, to shine so brightly that they'll need sunglasses just to watch you walk away. I built Reborn from tears, from hurt, from every "you're not good enough" they whispered behind my back. And now, I sit in rooms they told me I'd never enter. Now, I make decisions they thought I was too stupid to understand. Now, I help women they left behind. And Ethan, he's just a name in a folder now. A cautionary tale. A man who had gold in his hands and threw it away, because it wasn't wrapped in designer packaging. I hope he finds peace. I truly do. But I hope he never forgets the day he walked into the office of the woman he once broke and realized she had risen from his ashes. To every woman watching this, you don't have to wait for someone to choose you. Choose yourself. Fight for yourself. Love yourself like your life depends on it, because it does. And when the day comes that they see you again, let them choke on their regret. Because you were never the weak one. You were the storm. You just hadn't learned how to roar yet.